Good morning. Brother Chad Long, Delhi Baptist Church. This will be our final broadcast from Louisiana. We're still here in the hotel, Tristan and I, Sleeping Beauty over there. Anyway, we're going to pack up our things and get out of the room and go to one more partial day of Bible conference. The conference actually goes until, I think, 9 o'clock tonight, but most of the preachers head home. They for two reasons. One, um, it's Wednesday and we have our own churches, and many of us don't like to cancel our services, like myself. The other reason is, and I heard it put this way by a preacher friend of mine. He said, the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure. And Brother Tim would agree with that. A lot of information, a lot of good preaching, a lot of good music. I wished I could pull this up and access it like a file folder in my head when I want to hear these things, and have them right there handy at the ready. The best I can do is they send us a flash drive of all the sermons that we've heard, and we can listen to them again and remind ourselves of the things that we've heard, and maybe catch some things we didn't hear because we were, you know how you go in and out of focus anytime you're listening to something. So it'll be neat to see what all I missed when I go back and listen to some of these. But it's been good. We've had some good preaching. We've had some good fellowship, some good food. I lost some weight before I came down here, and I think I may have gained some of it back. I have to get back to exercising pretty hard, or I'm gonna swell back up. But anyhow, we've had a good time in the Lord, and I've really appreciated getting to be here and hear what I'm hearing, and know what I'm knowing. This particular stretch of the psalm that we've been studying in Psalm 37 hit me because it goes real well with what we've been learning here. Humility is important in the life of a Christian, and it's just so easy. It's so easy for the devil to get somebody puffed up to think that there's something. And we have got to be so careful because we don't even know that we're doing it. The devil is just, he is so gifted, so skilled and he knows, he learns some of our buttons, what it is that he can push to get us focused on us and not on the Lord. And, preachers are not immune to that. I'm not immune to that for sure. And pride is a sin. Pride is a stinking God's nose. And so we have to be abundantly careful. And that leads us right into where we left off. I'll start in verse 9. Psalm 37:9 says, "For evildoers shall be cut off, but those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth." And I told you yesterday, I think it was, that I believe this reference to inheriting the earth is talking about the new earth, because who in the world would want this one? But keep in mind, the Lord's going to straighten this place out. He's going to flatten all he's everything that's too high, he's going to flatten, and everything that's too low, he's going to raise up, and he's going to straighten it all out. He's just going to make all the crooked places straight. Anyhow, it's not going to be this earth. If it was this earth, I would want it. But he says, those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. He says in verse 10, "For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place, and it shall not be." And I told you what I thought that meant, and so I won't rehash that. But the wicked, the time is limited for wicked people. And I'm glad, because I look at some of these folks, and I'm not going to call names because I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be political. I'm not. Some of these people that are wicked, just really wicked, I don't think they really have a political party. Their whole agenda is just hate and hurt and personal gain. And I look at some of them and I think, man, how can God stand to let that idiot, that person, whatever you want to call them, stand where they stand and do what they do. And I have to remember that their time is limited. They're not going to get away with that forever. In fact, it's not going to be much longer, I don't think, and the Lord's going to take care of these things. But however long He wants to permit it, it will be taken care of. A little while is what the Bible says. The wicked shall not be. You can look for them diligently, consider their place. You're not going to find them. So we begin in verse 11 for this section, and it says, "But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace." Here's another reference to inheriting the earth. I read a note by Dr. J. Vernon McGee on this, and I disagree with his note, so I'm not even gonna tell you what he said. But I've read some other people's take on it, and I guess I have a unique perspective here, because I don't get out of that verse what they're getting out of that verse. I still think he's talking about the new earth. I know there's people who think that we're going to spend eternity in heaven, and that's not what the Bible teaches. New Jerusalem is enormous, and you think, well, how in the world can we all fit in one city? Well, we think of the dimensions, and I don't want to get scientific, but we think of things being one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional. New Jerusalem is going to be 3- and 4-dimensional, because the fourth dimension is time, and you know what a 3-dimensional object is. I think that we'll have the ability to live as high or low in the city as we want to. We don't have to live at ground level. And I don't think it'll be like the condominiums today. I don't, because I think we'll be able to float. I don't know if we'll have wings and fly, but we're not going to be restricted to the ground. There's going to be a whole lot more room than people realize. And God knows what He's doing, and I don't worry about those things. But He says, the meek shall inherit the earth. And I think the meek here is a reference to God's people. Here's why I think that. Up until just a few years ago, meek to me was people like my mother-in-law, who is just a non-combative, non-argumentative person. She is a very meek person. She don't want to argue with nobody. She don't want to fight with nobody. You can be right about everything. She doesn't care. She just wants to live and get along, and why can't we all just get along? And that's her personality. And some people are a little more contentious, and they want to prove a point, argue, take a stand, and on some things I will too. I mean, when I was young, I'd fight at the drop of a hat or argue with you, but as I get older, I realize that God is shaping me into this person who is learning how to be meek. And you're looking at me now and you're thinking, no, you're not. Well, not in some areas, but where it counts, because I don't want to fight with nobody. I just want to love folks. I want to educate them. I want to help them, but I don't want to fight with anybody. Older I get, the less I care about being right. I just want to honor God. And so I think the reference here to the meek is God's people, because when you get saved and He moves in, it stops being about you and begins to be about Him. And it takes a meek person to realize that it's all about Him. It's always been about Him. All focus ought to be on God anyway, not on us. And so when the Bible says the meek shall inherit the earth, I think that's a reference to God's people. And it would fit, because that's who's going to wind up with this place. It'll be the Lord's, but we'll be here with Him. After our little stint in heaven where the church gets to be with the Lord and celebrate the wedding, we come back when He comes back. When He comes back to take hold of this place, we come with Him. And we rule and reign here for 1,000 years. He does, but we are with Him. And then after the millennial reign, He builds a new heaven and a new earth. And I believe we remain here. And so the meek shall inherit the earth, I think, is a reference to who's going to win in the end and who's going to have the new earth, who's going to be in it. And I think that'll be God's people. So I think that the meek is us. Now you say, well, I'm not a meek person, Brother Chad. No, maybe not. But you will be. because it takes a meek person to recognize and relinquish any control you thought you had. And control is an illusion. You don't have any anyway. Let me just go ahead and tell you that right now. If you think you're preventing yourself from contracting anything from malaria to coronavirus, you can do things that are cautious and careful, but you don't really have any control. I mean, what's keeping a mosquito or you want to keep 6 foot away from your neighbor? That's fine. You're not keeping the mosquitoes 6 foot away. I mean, that's one example in a bunch that you could use to just show that we don't have the control we think we have. My daughter got stung by a scorpion just the other day, and that thing came out of nowhere. I mean, you can be as cautious and as careful as you want to. Things happen, and we don't have as much control as we think we have, and it takes a meek person to recognize that and to relinquish all illusion of control and just trust the Lord. Just trust Him. Hey, if it happens, it happens. Whatever happens, but trust Him. That's just one aspect of being meek, and there are others. I won't expound too much on that, but just understand that I think this is a reference to God's people when it says the meek shall inherit the earth, and they shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. And I promise you, with all the wars and rumors of wars and arguments and fights and things that we've had to endure in this life, it's going to be all we want, just to have peace and fellowship and love with our God. And so it's good to know that that's how this thing's going to end up. Verse 12, the wicked plotteth against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. There's a sharp contrast here between what the meek delight in and what they're going to receive, and what the wicked intentions are. Their whole existence seemingly is plotting against people. And there's folks like that, man. They stay up at night thinking about ways to get at you or to get what you got, take away from you. So they're plotting against the just. And you say, well, I'm not just. You're not, but your Savior is. And His blood is applied to you. So the wicked are always going to find a way. I think this whole thing is less political than people think it is, and is more spiritual, because the devil just wants to hurt God's people. And one of the ways that he's used to do that is, well, just about every device that's ever come up. Coronavirus is one in a bunch of them. Just another way to stab at the Lord's churches and to stab at the Lord's people and to cause division. I know there's going to be churches that don't make it through this. We were talking about that at the Bible conference. Some estimates have 5% of churches are not going to make it through this virus. They're going to be permanently closed over it. And I don't understand how you close the church anyway. I thought the church was the people. I thought a church was God's people. How do you close that? You can close a building, but how do you close God's church? The devil will use any device at his disposal, and he plots against the just, and he gnashes upon him with his teeth. And he doesn't really have any teeth. The Lord ripped his teeth out. He's going to gum us to death. But you have to remember, this is written before Calvary. So anyhow, verse 13, the Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. Let me tell you something about that. God is laughing at Satan and his level of ignorance. And those who are in cahoots with him, whether knowingly or by default, they're being laughed at by God, because they're just... You ever see somebody do something so stupid it makes you laugh? Yes, you have, because most of you have watched Facebook or YouTube or America's Funniest Home Videos or something. I've watched, man, I've seen so many of these, I can't even count them. But back when there was a show called America's Funniest Home Videos, and I'd watch it sometimes. And the one that stands out in my mind, because it's so ignorant, is all the different people on skateboards trying to jump a rail that come down hitting themselves right in their private area. That may not be what comes to your mind, but that comes to mind because most of the videos are either cute or funny in some other way. But that one's funny in ignorance, because how many people do you have to see do that before you decide to do something else with your time? I don't know what all else I could find to do, but I promise you I can find something better to do than to try to jump over a stair railing with a board on wheels, knowing that the chances of that coming out good for me are slim. I don't care how good you are. You can be Tony Hawk. I don't care how good you are with a skateboard. More times than not, trying to do things like that are going to end up in a wreck. You're going to land on your head. You're going to land on your tailbone. I know people that have broke their tailbone. That hurts. And I know you're thinking, why in the world are you going on about skateboards and dumb people? Well, I'll tell you why. It's a small example, but that we can use to illustrate how we laugh at ignorant things people do. You'll laugh at this. I saw a picture on, it probably was on Facebook. I saw a picture somebody posted of a guy who had a load of dirt, a pile of dirt on his flatbed truck, and he had two straps running over it. Now, I don't know what he thought the straps were holding, but I'm pretty sure when you get up there on the highway, them straps ain't going to keep that dirt from blowing off that flatbed truck. I saw another one where somebody put a four-wheeler in the back of their pickup, and they ran a strap over the four-wheeler to hold it down, but they ran it through the spokes of the wheels of the truck. Now, you do know them tires have to turn, right? I mean, this is just examples, but you see stupid stuff like that, and you laugh at it. And just imagine, the Bible says the Lord shall laugh at him. When it says him, he's talking about the wicked that plot against the just. And the reason the Lord's going to laugh is because he sees that his day is coming. When I laugh at that four-wheeler with the straps running through the spokes of the wheels, nothing's happened yet. I'm laughing because I know what's coming. If they drive that thing like that, it's not going to turn out good. Anyhow, maybe you guys didn't need the illustration, but I felt better giving it. Verse 14, the wicked have drawn out the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and needy. That means they've taken arms against the poor and the needy. And that's not a new thing. That happens today too. That's not a new thing. The wicked have always been ready to fight against those who are meek and poor and needy and just. Drawn out their sword means the weapon's in their hand. Bent their bow means they're taking aim. To cast down the poor and needy and to slay such as be of upright conversation. Well, that ought to be us. If it ain't, it ought to be. And that's who the wicked are after. Verse 15 says, their sword shall enter into their own heart, and their bows shall be broken. Verse 15 is the conclusion of what the Lord's laughing at in verse 13. The Lord's laughing at the wicked because he sees what's going to happen. These that have taken up weapons to hurt God's people are going to wind up dying by their own weapons. The old saying is, he that lives by the sword dies by the sword. And even a little more modern is, don't take your guns to town. You'll get shot with, you enter into a gunfight, you're likely to get killed. You know what they don't tell you in them old gunfights? They don't tell you this, but this is true. I looked this up. You watch them old westerns, and I'm guilty. I like westerns. But you watch them old westerns, and somebody's faster than the other. Somebody, somebody's quicker. Somebody's going to get that thing out faster and more accurate, and somebody else is going to die. What they don't tell you is in most of those gunfights, most of the time, everybody's hurt. Usually, everybody gets wounded in that deal. I mean, one may die and one may live, but it usually don't turn out good for anybody. And even if you do, if it does, you got folks chasing you. You wind up being pursued because you just shot somebody's brother or husband or father or whatever. So those deals never turn out good. And what the Lord's trying to tell us here is that He's in control. He's going to take care of His people. I know sometimes it feels like He's not, but He is. And I don't want you guys to get discouraged. I want you to be encouraged, knowing that if we're the meek here, and I think we are, that we're going to inherit the new earth, and that we've got a lot to look forward to. God's laughing at the wicked who are set to hurt us because they don't have any chance of winning anything. And it's just ignorant that they don't see that. They can't understand that their way is not a profitable way and their end is not going to be good. So I hope you'll take comfort knowing that God is in control and that He's going to take care of these things. And we're going to look at that actually, Lord willing, tomorrow. We're going to look at some other ways that God's provisions are there and that He takes care of us. But listen, for today, I want you to pray for me as I travel home. For those of you who will be in church tonight, I look forward to seeing you there. We're still studying the book of Genesis. Please just have a good day. Pray for me. Love one another. And remember that no matter how Satan's got it in for us, God is on the throne and He always wins. And we're His people and He loves us. And I love you. Have a good day.